It is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Keith Holden, MD, from Louisiana State University School of Medicine, New Orleans in 1992. Let me read you his bio. Keith Holden is a physician board certified in internal medicine and trained in functional medicine through the Institute of Functional Medicine. Functional medicine works best for chronic diseases, often finding the root causes of diseases and correcting it to allow for healing and resolution of illness. His training in functional medicine filled in all of the blanks that medical school and residency left out. Dr. Holden has a special interest in energy-based therapies, mind-body medicine, and spirituality in medicine. He has lectured at multiple medical conferences in the United States and in Canada on topics including how food sensitivities and gut dysfunction participate in systemic illness and autoimmunity, the biological effects of pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, and how to use the power of the mind to heal the body. His popular course on Udemy, udemy.com, titled Power of the Mind in Health and Healing, has over 2,700 students from all over the world and has garnered 43 five-star reviews. His science-based courses teaches how to use the power of the mind to heal the body and maximize intuition. It includes the latest science proving the ability of the mind to heal the body and methods for removing limiting beliefs and old emotional conflicts buried in the subconscious mind. It also teaches how to use brainwave entrainment to enhance meditation and how to pack the placebo effect to improve one's health. Dr. Holden understands that everything in our universe is made of energy, including consciousness. He also understands that by effectively working with the energies of the body and mind, one can achieve miraculous things. And Dr. Holden, you know why I contacted you? Not only are you a legend on the internet and social media, I mean, you are. I mean, it's unbelievable the impact you're having, but here's the reason I want you to speak on there. When you talk to the American people, it seems like the majority have kind of lost faith in the healthcare system. You know, they feel like if you go to a doctor, they're just going to write you a prescription for a pill. You read things that America has 5% of the population and take 25 to 50% of the world's pills. I think they take half the narcotic opiates on the world. And then, on the other hand, then you got these 211,000 dentists in America. And you ask them, you say, well, what do you think about alternative medicine? And they say, oh, that's crazy. You know, you got to do it this way. And I say, but then I ask you, well, do you take medications for high blood pressure? Oh no, I fixed mine by exercise. Well, did you take all these medications? No. So when you talk to a dentist, they tell you they're against alternative medicine, but then for themselves physically they do alternative medicine. And I believe, not to get into politics, but the Congress has had an 11% approval rating for 2 decades, and then people wonder why these elections get so crazy. I mean, the people aren't happy with their government, and they're not happy with their health care. So I wanted you to come in and talk. Would you consider yourself alternative medicine?
I like to consider myself a nice mixture. I love science.
Yeah.
I think science is very important, and it helps bridge the gap into alternative, because once the science starts to prove it, it no longer is really alternative. And that's how medicine has kind of gone through an evolutionary process, and it's going through one right now. Like you say, patients are unhappy with healthcare, so are doctors. There's a dramatic increase in suicides among physicians. I think it's 400 a year. There's a high rate of burnout. Poll after poll shows it's above 50%. That's really dangerous for everyone. There's a general discontent about healthcare, and I think it relates to just the system. You know, it's a old dinosaur with a lot of inertia, and it's going to take a long time to slow it down and either rebuild it or get rid of it altogether and start anew. And people don't like change. No one likes change, and it can be threatening. So it's important to integrate things bit by bit and use some good solid science to show that it's not woo-woo. And there's an inherent bias in everyone, and it just depends on how they want to channel that energy. And it's important that you always keep an open mind, and that's one thing I really teach in my course, because when you keep an open mind, there's always room for growth and transformation, and that's actually how the great discoveries get made.
Everyone does have a bias. You know why Trump is so anti-immigrant? Because all of his ex-wives were immigrants from Russia. Poor joke. So I want to start that
Yeah.
poor joke. So I want to start with first of all, just what is functional medicine?
Well, I was introduced to functional medicine online by just perusing websites looking for good quality science-based integrative medicine and good science-based alternative medicine. And thankfully, the Institute for Functional Medicine in Gig Harbor, Washington, filled in all the blanks, and they offer training programs globally. Their courses are sold out year after year. And
What's the name of that website?
functionalmedicine.org.
And what was the other website I mentioned? Udemy,
Udemy.
Udemy.
udemy.com, and that's basically a website that hosts courses. And it can be courses from tech to how to build an app to how to code to how to do yoga or learn meditation. And they do a good job at screening the courses that come in there, so they don't want junk. They don't want people that have no idea what they're doing trying to teach. So they do a really good job at screening. And the good thing about Udemy, they've got millions of customers all over the world. And so when you create a course on that website and it becomes successful, thankfully like mine, I'm very grateful for that. I now have over 3,000 students, and it's in the top 10 of personal transformation courses. And when you get exposed like that, it really helps you to become a thought leader in your field. And right now I've just released my manuscript to the editor, and I've created a book on the course, basically goes over the most important components of the course. Not everyone likes to take a course to learn. Some people like to read. So I love Udemy. I'm very thankful for them.
So the website you were talking about that you started learning on was functionalmedicine.org?
Yes.
It was the Institute for Functional Medicine?
Right. Now they do offer some training on their website, but the majority of their training is offered in live courses. The initial course is a week long. It introduces you to all the overall concepts of functional medicine. And then after that, there are 3-day courses that they offer on each system. And I encourage some of your followers to check it out. There's plenty of dentists that have taken all the courses. It's across the board. It can be physicians, it can be acupuncture doctors, chiropractors, dentists. It levels the playing field because it's a common sense approach to medicine. And I would say it's science-based naturopathy, but once you start throwing naturopathy out there, you're going to get people throwing rocks at it because they just don't understand what good science-based naturopathy can do for someone. And when you go to these courses, all the conferences have great teachers, and these teachers use solid science with citations and peer-reviewed medical journals to support the concepts that they're teaching, and that's why I really love it, because I'm a scientist first.
But you know, if I would have walked up to you in Salem, Massachusetts a few hundred years ago and gave you an iPhone and told you to talk to your grandma in the next state over, you would have thought I was a witch and you would have drowned me. So I always remind myself of that, because I always think of myself that we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know. So as we're having this discussion, just think what our discussion today will look like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 1,000 years ago. So whenever people are always telling me about evidence-based medicine, like, well, here's the facts. I'm like, yeah, the facts of what we know, but we don't even know what we don't know. I mean, don't you I mean, I can imagine that a root canal 1,000 years from now, imagine describing a root canal to someone 1,000 years from now. Yeah, they used to drill a hole in the top of the tooth, take wires, pull the guts out, rinse it with bleach, and then pour cement down the middle. I mean, and when they did it, the person was alive. And everybody in 3,000 is going to say, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't live in 2016. So, I mean, we just don't know what we don't know.
Correct. And this is how evolution in medicine takes place. And it's happened time after time after time where something gets ridiculed and then it's embraced. And then it's incorporated into actual evidence-based medicine. And you can go as far back as to when they first figured out that germs were causing infections in women postpartum. And the first person that said, well, it's got to be microorganisms. It's microorganisms that we can't see with the naked eye. That's what's causing this. They were so ridiculed. I mean, it's just a classic example, and it happens at generation after generation after generation. But if you're brave and you're a pioneer and you're passionate about what you believe in, and in your heart you know it's the right thing and you're doing it for the right reasons, you're going to keep pushing forward, and you're going to make some changes, and hopefully that's going to impact a lot of people in very positive ways.
So what do you so what is what's got you passionate now? I mean, where are you at right now where you wished the 1 million, there's 1 million MDs in America, correct?
I have no idea. That sounds about right.
Yeah, the last I saw there was there was 950,000 living humans in America that had an MD degree. I think it was 40,000 DOs and 211,000 dentists. So where do you think you're at right now where you wish the other million people would think more about?
By far, it's the power of the mind in health and healing. That's a constant in your environment, and the science that's emerging on the power of the mind, the power of consciousness to facilitate optimal health is just mind-boggling, no pun intended, but it really is. The science-based evidence about mindfulness and meditation is exploding. You've got researchers studying the placebo effect because they're finally realizing how absolutely powerful it is. You've got Harvard creating their own placebo research center. You've got scientists all over the world dedicating their lives to just studying the placebo effect because they're starting to find out that it can really do some powerful things. And the placebo effect used to be ridiculed. This is another example of ridiculing something that has some great potential, and then that ridicule and that bias and that prejudice holds it back from emerging onto the scene and really facilitating something powerful. And they used to, treat it terribly. They'd say, oh, placebo effect, it's just about deception. Well, we know that's not true anymore. We know that they've done some studies where you actually told them, okay, you're going to get a placebo, but we do know by science that the placebo effect has some very powerful effects on the body in very positive ways. And in those scientific studies, those patients got better despite knowing they were taking a placebo. Another example is there's an inherent placebo effect in every medication. So some of this research on the placebo effect started to tease this out, and they found that depending on how you label a medication, whether you label it placebo or medicine, meaning it could be either, or you label it the medicine, depending on how you labeled it, it had a quantitative effect as far as positive impact on their physiology. And so I get so excited about the science behind the power of the mind because there's solid scientific peer-reviewed evidence emerging that just it can't be ridiculed anymore. And so this is to me an example of something very powerful happening right now in the evolution of medicine. I see your kitty.
Yeah. She always jumps on my desk because she doesn't understand why I'm not paying any attention to her.
Right.
And I'm staring at this blank computer screen.
Yeah, somebody's spoiled, like all kitties. Yeah, that's all right. So that's what I'm passionate about, the mind, consciousness. I'm also passionate about blending spirituality with science, because to me that's where all the great discoveries are going to be made. There is something very powerfully mysterious about our universe that scientists do not understand. They don't even understand exactly how consciousness works. And if you talk to the typical hardcore scientist, he's putting consciousness in a box, and he's going to say it only has to do with the mind, the physical body. But if you look at some of the crazy studies out there that are peer-reviewed, you can see that consciousness has non-local impacts on plants, people. It's amazing. And there's even evidence of solid scientific evidence of being able to predict the future. And the HeartMath Institute is a good company with great leaders that are pioneers in their field on mind-body medicine, but specifically how the heart meshes with the mind. And so they found that you can do some studies, and it's reproducible. And Dean Radin out at the IONS Institute in Petaluma, California, he's also a pioneer in mind-body medicine. They both reproduce these studies that you can show when you're having a person watch a screen and they're flashing pictures. It can be a neutral picture. It can be a picture that invokes some harsh response, like a mangled car accident or someone dying or whatever, that they will connect them to an EKG and connect them to an EEG, and it will show consistent change in their heart rate before that picture is flashed that is going to invoke a harsh response versus the neutral one. And that's one study that's been reproduced over and over by two different groups. And so to me, that shows us our consciousness extends outside of our body. And there's like a, I don't want to get real woo-woo here, but you start to see how time, the past and the future are kind of intermeshed. And that's something that scientists do not like thinking about. But if you look at quantum physics, there's some really crazy things going on with quantum physics that scientists can't quite explain. So there's something very mysterious about our universe. And I think that mysterious part of it is to me spiritual. Now, if you're an atheist, you don't have to call it spiritual. Just call it energetic. I don't think that, we have to put things in a box. I hate dogma on any level. And so you can call that spiritual, mysterious part just energy. And it works the same.
So you say you don't like dogma?
Not really.
And why? And explain why? Because explain why.
Because if you shut yourself down into a rigid dogmatic box and you don't allow yourself to change your beliefs, then you shut down your growth and transformation. Because not every belief is a truth, no matter how much you believe in it. Prejudice is an example. That's something that's passed down typically generation to generation. Their grandfather believed it. Their dad believed that about a group of people. Hey, they believed it. They're my family. I believe it with all my heart. Well, is that a truth? No. Okay, that's a belief. Not every belief is a truth. So when you get stuck in a rigid dogmatic box, you're trying to say that all your beliefs are a truth. It's impossible. There's too much gray.
And the data shows a collapsing of organized dogma religion and an explosion in spirituality.
Right. So they
is that what you see also?
I do. I think people are, and there's always groups of people that are going to kind of give things a bad name or poison the pot. And when you start using religion to justify why someone else is not as good as you, or why someone shouldn't have certain rights or whatever, without getting into politics, people are fed up with that, especially the younger generation. The younger generation, I'm finding, they're loving, they're open, they're accepting, they're all about, embracing equality, whether it's men or women or whatever. And I think that's a wonderful thing. That's really, to me, the Christ consciousness. And I don't say that for, speaking to Christians. I'm just saying it's an example of the consciousness that Christ brought to the earth and the teachings that he gave.
I want to give an example of what we know and what we don't know. So I'm 53. When I was in physics in 1980 at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, I was formally taught that in an atom, 99.99999% of the atom was empty space. It was this, this little dense proton and neutron, and then this little electron on the edges flying around at the speed of light. So now advanced 25 years. Now they're saying that not only is it not empty, that everything we've ever observed is 5% of the universe, and 68% of the universe is dark energy, and 27% is dark matter. And now they're saying that the only thing that would keep that electron in there is just massively dense dark matter, dark energy, because if that wasn't there, that electron would be flying off at the speed of light. And I'm sitting here like, well, how did we go from 99.9999% nothing to now this dark matter energy so dense it's holding the electron? And so that's something I've witnessed in my 25 years of, things I paid $6,000 a year to learn, that within 2 decades were like, oh, we were completely wrong on that.
And that's why it's so important to maintain an open mind and be open for new observations that turn out to be true. And that's why the Large Hadron Collider in Europe is being funded. Their scientists are trying to discover every particle of energy in the universe, so that they can come up with a unified field theory, which is a mathematical model that would explain how all the energies in our universe interact. And I will argue that consciousness is energy. That's why prayer works in certain circumstances. And when they make those big discoveries and find these, supposedly they've already found the God particle, the Higgs particle, but there's more and more and more out there, and they're looking for dark matter. They're trying to figure out its components.
Yeah, and they don't even know what's going on in a black hole. I mean, you see
Right.
it sucking in entire galaxies. It's like, where's that going? You mentioned something at the beginning of the show that 400 MDs in America commit suicide each year, correct?
Correct.
And dentistry is known for that too. And I had a very close friend do that 2 weeks ago. I would say that in my career, it's about 3 a year for the ones I know.
Wow.
3 a year. What advice would you give to some dentists? Most of these people listening to you right now, there are thousands of dentists. They're driving to work. They got an hour commute. They're probably listening to you while they're looking at 8 lanes of concrete in LA. And sometimes they have that thought, yeah, like, is this even worth it? I mean, I'm in a rat wheel. Sometimes I'm thinking I'm just gonna, or 18% of Americans have substance abuse issues. We lost Michael Jackson. We just recently lost Prince. Dentistry is the same as the population, where 18% of dentists have substance abuse issues at least one time in their career. What would you say to all these people?
Well, I think, doctors and dentists are incredibly driven. Look, they got through dental school, they got through medical school, they got through residencies or postgraduate programs, and we tend to be nerds that thrive on achievement and honor and good grades and the next diploma. And at some point, it can cause you to sacrifice yourself, striving and never giving yourself time to recuperate, regenerate, repair. If you stay in that high stress mode, it triggers your stress response, and it's going to have significant detrimental effects on your body if it's prolonged and unchecked. So you've got to take time to do self-care. You've got to slow down, even if it's focusing on your breath for 5 minutes a day. I do belly breathing on my way to work every day, and they say, well, that's not really meditation. No, but it's significant diaphragmatic breathing that's going to trigger my relaxation response before I get to work. I don't have to necessarily meditate to trigger that relaxation response. A good diaphragmatic breath work will do that for you. So everybody needs to do some form of self-care. You need, if you can put it in your budget, get massage, acupuncture, some type of care that's going to get you to slow down, stop what you're doing, get off your cell phone, get off your computer, stop checking your emails. Your body's an infinitely intelligent organism. It knows how to repair itself when it's given the proper resources. And part of those resources is you stopping and slowing down. And when you slow down enough, you will rethink your life. When you start to realize, when all these red flags start popping up, I'm dreading going into work every day now, or now I'm starting to get arthritis, or now I was just diagnosed with heart disease, or et cetera, et cetera. Your body will give you plenty of red flags. If you're going to keep ignoring those red flags, then you've chosen your path. Maybe you want to be a martyr in the idea of, I'm going to achieve myself to death, or I'm going to be successful and a millionaire, but it's going to kill me by the time I'm 45. Some people choose those paths, but you don't have to choose it, is my point. So when you slow down, you start using mindfulness, being more aware of the present moment instead of being stuck regretting your past or worrying about your future. the incremental increase in mindfulness, even if it's a minute here, 2 minutes there, 15 seconds here, it slowly adds up and it has positive impact on your body. And then if you start incorporating some form of meditation, and that can be as simple as doing some focusing on your breath for 5 minutes a day, going outside and sitting on the grass and breathing. It doesn't have to be complicated. And people say, I can't slow my mind down. You never will slow your mind down. That can only happen. You'll only stop your mind when your body has died. So don't worry about slowing your mind down. Go create some peaceful presence in your life, however you resonate. For some, it could be surfing. For some, it could be knitting. For some, it's endless. But you've got to find your one thing that's going to help you calm down and be at peace in the present moment, not regretting your past or worrying about your future. And it takes practice. Isn't that sad that we have to practice triggering our relaxation response when that is an inherent part of us, right? We're so used to drive, and check your emails and constantly on your social media. It's really detrimental. And so once you create an awareness around that, that's your starting point. Create awareness around that issue. Number 2, set an intention that you're going to slow down. You're going to start doing some self-care, incorporating some simple mindfulness and meditation. And those are the 2 starting points. And when you start doing that and you do bring 5 minutes of breath work into your day, you start saying, wow, I'm feeling more relaxed. I'm not dreading as much going into work. And you're going to find it's an incremental process. And the more you do it, the more it builds. And then the more you trigger your relaxation response, the more your body repairs itself. You lose that belly ring, you lose your belly, that stress cortisol belly, you start having more energy, you start sleeping better, you start relying less on caffeine, etc. So as long as you provide some simple resources for your body and your mind, your body will start repairing itself. Now, there's other issues like unresolved emotional conflicts that I talk about in my course. And a lot of times those originate from childhood. And you're like, wait, I got enough to work with now. I don't need childhood stuff coming into play. But there's some really fascinating studies coming out of the Kaiser Permanente did a huge study over many, many, many years. And they found that children who experience any type of adverse childhood experiences, and there's a long list, and you can guess what those are, and they varied from individual to individual. They found that they dramatically increased their risk of adult illnesses, both physical and mental. Shocker, right? We are a body-mind. We're not a body-mind.
Did that list include Catholic school?
That specific study did not label it as such, but some would say...
I could still name my biggest nightmares: Sister Mary Aloysia, Sister Mariella.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I want you to weigh on probably the biggest controversy in dentistry. I mean, seriously. So you have all of these. Probably divides the dentists into. There's probably 100,000 American dentists in each camp. Some think all this TMJ and grinding is all this mechanical, and they want to adjust all the teeth and redo the teeth, and they all talk about it like they're mechanical engineers. And then the other half is sitting there thinking, well, maybe they're stressed out. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe they're having marital problems. Maybe they're grinding their teeth because they're stressed out. And some people in that camp say that stress is also linked to the entire chiropractic industry. Some people are saying that lower back pain has more to do with stress than the physical lumbar and the adjustment and all that. And some people are saying, when the humans get stressed, they can grind their teeth, TMJ, they can have lower back pain, irritable bowel, angina, migraine headaches. That's another one. Whereas like some people would say, no, but let's just focus on dentistry, TMJ. What would you say to half the dentists in America that say TMJ is all mechanical and has nothing to do with the mind, stress, or the brain?
It's both. I mean, common sense will tell you.
I agree.
And the people are going to some guys are going to get angry, but because they want to defend their position, and that's the ego. Hey, okay, don't believe in it. That's fine. Do your own practice. You may have a very successful practice, without integrating mind-body stress, addressing stress. That's fine. Do it your way. But, you know, it's both. I mean, we are a body-mind. You can't separate the two. The science is proving it. It's overwhelming science that how much the mind impacts the body, and depending on the individual. And that's an important point. Not everybody's impacted by stress the same way. And it's going to be depending on their genetics, their body habitus, their lifestyle. There's so many variables that come into play as to how stress is going to impact them and their body. You can't predict it for everyone. So a good point is, don't say that everyone's going to have, you know, stress-related back pain, which causes the TMJ, etc. No, it's a mixed bag. So you have to consider all those components of why someone may be having an unresolved physical ailment, and you can never go wrong asking them about the stressors in their life and giving them a few tips here and there about how to manage their stress. Because if someone is chronically stressed, and you won't know unless you go there. You know, they may seem the most calm, mellow, chill surfer dude, and then you start digging a little bit about why we can't get his TMJ under control, and he's got this adversarial relationship with his father, and he always wanted to show his father that he was successful, but his dad's never been approving, et cetera, and he dreams about it. And so, you know, unless you go there, you can't say it's not a player. And I will tell you, stress in unresolved issues, there's some type of stress, whether it's physical or emotional or both, and usually it's both.
And you would say with TMJ, you'd say how much do you think stress has to do with the chiropractic industry of lower back pain?
Honestly, I don't know anything about. I mean, I've heard that connection, but I don't know enough details about that to give you an informed comment.
And then another issue in dentistry that's very new compared to when I got out of school. And I got out of school in '87, and about 5 years ago, probably about 2010, out of nowhere, everybody's talking about sleep medicine, sleep apnea, you know, this, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of see that as as it's going from a mechanical drilling out an infection in a tooth and filling in a hole to now kind of the oral systemic link, the whole body. What do you think about all this sleep medicine talk nowadays? Do you see that?
Sleep's incredibly important, whether it's for TMJ or uncontrolled hypertension or whatever. Sleep's a big player. We know that the body does a ton of its repair processes when you go through your proper stages of sleep, especially REM sleep. We also know through some studies on animals, and this hasn't been shown in humans just because it's hard to study, but the brain detoxifies during deep sleep. And so sleep is incredibly important for overall good health. So as far as how much, are you asking about all the dentists that are pursuing sleep studies? And
well, it's new. Some people are saying, you know, I hear them say it. Some are saying, oh, it's the latest fad. And other people are saying, no, this is, what I do see the market going to is that instead of being molar mechanics on the tooth, they're starting to dive behind the mouth, and they're calling it the oral systemic link. Like maybe this grinding has to do with sleep apnea. Like maybe this grinding has to do with stress. You know, maybe the bacteria in your gum disease is in your pancreas. And I mean, they're finding P. gingivalis from gum disease in pancreatic areas when they have pancreatic cancer. They're finding it in around Alzheimer's areas. I mean, they're showing us that 4 of our major anaerobic bacteria in gum disease are found all over the body.
well, let's talk about those are kind of two separate issues. So let's talk about the sleep apnea issue. You know, the society is, the majority of people are obese. So with obesity comes sleep apnea. It's just a natural progression of what's going to happen. So we know if you have uncontrolled sleep apnea, it has all kind of detrimental effects on the body. I had a patient who wouldn't use a CPAP, and he died in the middle of the night, a sudden death. His heart went into arrhythmia, and he didn't even have any underlying coronary artery disease on autopsy. So it can have all kind of impacts, negative impacts on the body. And again, that's an individual thing. It's going to show up where their weak link is. But if you're looking at sleep apnea, hey, if you're the one that discovered their sleep apnea, whether you believe it has a dental link or not, you're awesome. You're helping this person. You're creating some awareness so that they can go get some very serious problem treated. So either way, I think it's important to address sleep, whether you believe in the link to grinding your teeth and sleep apnea or not. So it's important to address. And as far as the microbial issues, we know that what's emerging now about the microbiome, the bacterial colonies that are in our gut, they're starting to see that it has an impact on every aspect of our body, even depression, and it's all kind of crazy connections. So why wouldn't the mouth? It's another part of the gut, essentially, and it's all one big tube. So, of course, the science is solid on how the microbiome, and whether it's healthy or it's not, or it's diversified or it's not diversified, has a positive or a negative impact on multiple systems. There's there's no arguing that.
And and it's so weird because the two major diseases that we treat are 2 gram-negative facultative anaerobes, Streptococcus mutans that eats the teeth, and P. gingivalis that eats the gums. And I remember 25 years ago, all the dentists talking about, it seems like if they have a whole mouthful of gum disease, they don't have dental cavities. And they got a whole mouthful of cavities, they don't have gum disease. So even a quarter of a century ago, you saw that one bacteria is more dominant than the other. You didn't have 2 dominant pathogens at the beginning of this 30-foot tube from our mouth to the other end. And now there's people talking about that. You're right, that the microbiome in your gut could have an end result in what bacteria are pathological in your mouth.
Yeah, we've got more bacteria in our body than we do human cells. We have, for whatever reason, we've been created together in a symbiotic relationship. And if one of you if our buddy there is off, less diversity, or you've got an overgrowth of potentially pathogenic bacteria or excessive yeast or excessive viruses or whatever, it's going to have detrimental impact on the body somewhere, and that just depends on their weak link.
What do you mean by brainwave entrainment?
Okay, so brainwave entrainment is using, if you go back to way back when people were drumming, tribes drumming, if you set the beat to a certain level, then you can start, if someone is exposed to a repetitive stimulus and they pay attention to the repetitive stimulus, whether it's light, sound, vibration, it doesn't matter. The brain will start to entrain to it at a certain tempo. It's like our body wants to get in sync with our environment. And so that was the very first evidence of brainwave entrainment, and now they're starting to see that you can use modern technology such as binaural beats or isochronic tones embedded in audio tracks, whether it's nice music or sounds of the jungle or whatever, and you can, depending on how you set those tempos, the brain can start to entrain. And so, well, why would you want to use that? Well, some people, like I do, like to experiment with meditation, and I used binaural beats to entrain my brain waves down into the alpha and theta range. Because if you look at brain waves, we're predominantly in a beta wave predominance, and that's when we're stressed or we're thinking, like you and I are focused on each other. We're predominantly beta. Now, if we start to relax or you close your eyes, you're going to drop down into the alpha. If you start to go into pre-fallen asleep, where you may start to just have some weird thoughts or dream-like state, that's theta predominance, and you go into a deep sleep, it's delta. Your brain is never in just one, okay? It's always a mix. But when you start to have a predominance of one of those brainwave states, it will have a different impacts on your body, from stress to thinking hard to relaxation to dreamlike to sleep. And so you can use those isochronic tones or binaural beats embedded in tracks, and depending on the tempo they're set to, If you listen to it and you pay attention to it, you got your eyes closed, you're in a quiet space, it will start to entrain your brain waves, and you can use those to help you drop down into an alpha and theta. So or even use them right before you go to sleep and drop down into a delta. So why do you want to use that? Well, if you drop your brain waves down into an alpha and a theta, you're going to start to trigger your relaxation response. And that's going to help you do repair, regeneration, recovery. Now, also, if you want to use them for meditation techniques, you're not going to be able to drop down into your subconscious mind when you're in a high beta brainwave predominance. If you want to drop down into your subconscious mind, which to me is like a supercomputer that memorizes almost all your experiences in life and makes all these strange connections about why things happen in the way they are, and then you're filtering all your experiences subconsciously through that subconscious mind. And I talk about this in the course. And this is sometimes where prejudices come from, or fear, irrational fears. You make these weird correlations. It can be from childhood or traumatic experiences. And these can be limiting beliefs stuck in your subconscious mind that you're filtering your everyday experiences through. And because of that, it's a limiting belief that's going to limit you in some way. So in my course, I talk about how you can use these brainwave entrainment technology to drop down into an alpha and theta range, predominance. And when you go down, especially in theta, you can do self-hypnosis. You can go down into your subconscious mind and let something, you set an intention, and it can bubble up the experience that helped originate a limiting belief. And then you develop, because you're in a meditative state, you can go back to traumatic experiences in your life and recreate them. The mind, things you can do with your mind is endless. It's not just about learning and applying it in a practice or taking a test. You can do all kind of amazing things with your mind. So I like to use these tracks to go down into deep meditative states and work with my subconscious, and hopefully in the process heal myself.
So what is your thoughts on the U.S. healthcare system? I mean, if any American went to the doctor and said, I can't sleep at night, they'd write him a sleeping pill. I mean, it seems like if you tell your doctor, well, I got high cholesterol, they'll give you a anti-cholesterol pill, and they'll give you, a statin. I mean, you just tell them a symptom, and they write you a prescription. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, it's the system, it's the indoctrination, and I was indoctrinated into that, and I practiced that way for a long time. And I'd get real defensive if anybody tried to challenge me on it. Because this is the way you're supposed to do it, right? This is what your professors that you honored, that you thought were awesome teachers, that you admired, you saw them doing great things in the hospital and in the residency programs. So you saw, this is the way to do it, this is the only way to do it. Well, as you stay open to change, and thankfully a lot of doctors and dentists are staying open to changing their practices, incorporating mindfulness, meditation, nutrition, some simple things. It doesn't have to be complicated. You're supporting the system, and you're supporting the body. And thankfully, a lot of doctors are making changes and opening their minds. I go onto medscape.com, which is a huge educational program, traditional medicine education, but it also has plenty of forums and a lot of discussion. And I see them putting more information about holistic approaches to health, mind-body medicine. I see the positive comments by doctor after doctor. I think a lot of doctors are closet case meditators, or closet case, holistic, and they keep that separate from their personal life and their practice. So they're not labeled a fraud or a quack or whatever. And so I think intuitively, I think most people know it's the right thing. And I would say that a lot more doctors and dentists than you realize are doing this on their own. They just may not necessarily be incorporating it into their practice or waiting for permission to do it. And I think it's slowly evolving. And like I said, when I go to these functional medicine conferences, they're sold out. These doctors and dentists and acupuncture doctors or chiropractors are from all over the world. And it's going to be a change. It's going to be a grassroots change. It's also going to be consumer driven, because the consumers are starting to demand more holistic healthcare.
I know, and that's what I'm trying to beat into these dentists' head. That I mean, I see dentists that if they just put any of the buzzwords, more naturopathic, homeopathic, anything more natural. There were a lot of dentists that just by putting that their dental office is off the grid and that it's all ran by solar power, recyclable. That they were getting patients driving an hour away from their office, and it's a market reality that millions of Americans don't believe in the U.S. healthcare system anymore. And I think the dentists see it in their office. I mean, the one thing I always noticed whenever a man came in my office, and he was between 90 and 100, they always had the same thing in common. They weren't obese, they weren't smokers, and they didn't take any prescription medications. And then by the time you saw a 60-year-old man, if he was a fat, smoked, and was on 5 prescriptions, he never made 70. And so I mean, I've been a dentist for 29 years. I mean, you just see every day reading these health histories that the more prescription pills you take, you're in trouble. And I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times a couple Sundays ago, called Polypharmacy. And this guy was basically saying that by the time you're on 5 medications, you're probably in trouble. And by the time you're in 10, you're in deep trouble. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, polypharmacy is a problem. It's rampant in the U.S. and it's partly driven. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not anti-pharmacy, but pharmaceutical companies, but they are driving it. It's being driven based on greed. They're making billions of dollars, and there's a pill for everything now. Even they're coming up with these weird syndromes you've never even heard of that there's a pill for, and it's like, wow, what are they going to come up with next?
Restless leg syndrome. But the one that just floored me was during the Super Bowl this year, and they're saying, are you on opioid medications and you're constipated? Take this pill so that you can still have bowel movements while you're eating opioids all day long. And I just thought, why not just stop eating opioids?
Right, but that company's brilliant. They're taking advantage of the fact that millions of people are on opioids at one time or another in their life, and they cause constipation. So they've designed a drug that's going to attach to those receptors and block them so that they're not constipated when they take opioids. There's a pill for everything. So my point is, and you discussed the elderly guy that's taken care of himself his whole life. Ultimately it's about a strike and a balance, because modern medicine has brought us great things, and it excels in acute care and trauma. Okay, but as far as chronic disease, it doesn't do a very good job. And there's polypharmacy in elderly folks that's causing all kind of problems. Then there's a pill for a side effect, and then that adds more pills. And it just becomes ridiculous after a point. Even evidence-based medicine becomes dangerous at a point, because if you've got high cholesterol, hypertension, you've got diabetes, and you've got COPD, and you're on the evidence-based medicines for those diseases that you're supposed to be on, you can be on 12 drugs at once. You don't think your liver's going to be stressed, your body's going to be stressed from 12, you don't think you're going to have at least a few side effects from those medications. It becomes this dumb, vicious cycle. And, I can tell you, when I was an internist and seeing a lot of elderly, they'd come to my practice, first thing I'd do is go down their list of 12 to 15 drugs, and I'd narrow it down to 6. That was very common.
Explain to our listener, in case someone doesn't understand the term polypharmacy. Polypharmacy.
Polypharmacy just means people are taking too many pills.
But in your real life, real world, whenever you go over to a friend's house, an elderly's house, or whatever, they actually have pill containers Monday through Sunday, and man, they're each day is just packed with a dozen different colored pills, and you're just sitting there looking at this thinking, oh my God.
Well, ultimately it's about striking a balance, and just because you have a genetic predisposition for disease doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get it. There's a field of study called epigenetics, and it shows how our environment influences our genetic expression. So that in our environment, it means everything, from your thoughts to your foods to the toxins in your environment, depending on what you're exposed to, etc. So it's all about striking a balance and also taking personal responsibility, because for a lot of people, and I saw this in my internal medicine practice, for a lot of people, once you start prescribing a pill for a disease, that gave them carte blanche to go and eat whatever they wanted, even though they know they weren't supposed to. At least they know they weren't going to go to a diabetic coma while they're on their insulin. So they were going to go, a lot of them go pig out and they gain weight. And the insulin causes weight gain, and then it just becomes this vicious cycle. And at some point, it ultimately boils down to taking personal responsibility for your health, educating yourself, and there's no excuse now. The internet is full of education. Now, you do have to be aware of who's educating what, because there are some complete quacks out there and fraudsters that are just trying to sell a product. But there are also plenty of good websites, Mayo, Medscape.
Medscape's a good one.
Yeah.
And where can my homies take your course? Would they go to your website? It's Dr. Holden, HOLDEN.com, Dr.Holden.com. Is your course there? Is that where they would take it?
Well, you can go to the landing page for my website. When you go there, there's an introductory video about the course, and then there's a link to the Udemy website. It'll take you directly there. The course is not expensive. It's only $40. And it's got a ton of information. It's got 6 guided meditations.
Now, do you have to put it on Udemy? I mean, is it exclusive on Udemy?
I don't have to put it there, but it's done so well.
I mean, can you put it in another place?
Yes.
Because Dentaltown has 211,000 registered dentists, and we put up, we have a website, dentaltown.com, and it has an app. And on the app, we put up 350 courses, and they've been viewed over 600,000 times.
Wow.
So you could, but Ryan, when we push this out, let's put a link to dr-holden.com, and then they could go to www.udemy. Is that what it's called? Udemy? Udemy.com. And then they would just, when they go to udemy.com, they would just search Dr. Holden, or?
They can do that, or just type in Power of the Mind and Health and Healing in the search box, and it'll take them right to the course. Power
of the Mind in Health and Healing has over 2,700 students from all over the world. Talk about your course. How long is it, and what do you talk about in that course?
Yeah, so I actually have over 3,000 students now, and over 100 reviews, and the vast majority of 5 stars. So it's been very well received. I broke it up into modules, and the first module is making the science of mindfulness and meditation work for you, and that's where I go into the science that's emerging about using mindfulness and meditation, and also mind-body genomics, which is another fascinating component of the science out there, in that what it shows is that when you use meditation and mindfulness practices to trigger your relaxation response, it has an epigenetic influence on how your genes express. So they study these groups of people, and there's numerous studies, a couple of them I mentioned in my course, about teaching these people relaxation response techniques, and then bringing them back eight weeks later and rechecking their genetic profile, and it shows consistently that they have a positive impact on their physiology, because it's turning genes on and off. It's really, really fascinating, and I think there's going to be more and more mind-body genomics studies coming out in the near future. And I talk about the different types of meditation and how to overcome your resistance to meditation. I give you some very basic starting points for initiating a meditation practice. And then number 2, the module is conquering biological stress and maximizing energy. And I talk about how stress impacts the body, not only emotional stress, but physical stress. And I give you some functional medicine guidelines to create an overall support for your health. And then I talk about energy, kind of like we've talked about energy today, and a little bit about quantum physics and why energy is important. And then module 3 is about making the science of heart consciousness work for you. And in that module, I go into a lot of detail about the science that's coming out of the Heart Math Institute. And it's pretty fascinating stuff. They have a big push on using heart rate variability to see how well you're doing in your meditations. And there's actually an app that they've created that you can monitor your own heart rate variability as you do your meditation practices to see if it's creating coherence in your body, which coherence means good. And so I go into how that works and how you can use it. And then I give you a specific guided meditation in that module about how to transmute negative emotions. Meaning, if you're persistently angry about something or sad about something, I give you a technique about how to work with your mind to overcome this overriding negative emotion, and it works quite well. So I start introducing a little bit more complicated, a little more involved meditation practices as the modules go through the course. And then number 4 is Brainwave States, and we talked about some brainwave entrainment technology earlier. I go into a little bit more detail. I talk about a study that was done using a meta-analysis of studies that were done using brainwave entrainment technology and the positive impacts on the body. And then I talk to you about questioning your beliefs. We talked about that earlier. And then I give you a specific technique on how to remove limiting beliefs. But you've got to first find them. That's the key, because most of the time we don't even know they're there. So I give you a technique for finding them, and then I give you a technique for removing them. And then number 5 is, module 5 is my favorite. It's the placebo. And I go into all about the placebo effect research, but I keep it simple. I don't get too technological. I don't get too academic. But I also show you how you can use the psychology of this placebo effect to tap into your own inner healer. And that's the guided meditation at the end of that one. And then the last module is about aligning with your higher mind, your higher self. This one is a little bit more less science and more spiritual. And I talk about how you can use your intuition and tap into your intuition. I discuss the difference between local intuition and non-local intuition. And then I give you a specific guided meditation on how to work with that. So that's kind of a broad overview of my course.
And how much is it, and how long is it all together, all the 5 modules together?
It's designed to be taken over 6 weeks, and it's designed to be taken over 1 week per module, because I'd really like you to work with each guided meditation for a week before you move on to the next. It's got 78 lectures. It's got 5.5 hours of video.
And how much is it?
$40.
Dang, that is amazing. So, you know, that the National Health Survey showed that 38% of adults in America use complementary and alternative medicine, what they call CAM. What do you think is what would the consumer call, as opposed to Western medicine, where you go in and say, I can't sleep, they give you a pill. I got high cholesterol, they give you a pill. I consider that Western medicine. Or were we using the same terms and lingo?
It depends on who you talk to. So complementary and alternative medicine, holistic medicine, integrative medicine, it really depends on the physician and their personal preference of terminology as to how they label what they're doing. But it's basically all the same. And I say basically all the same. I mean, for physicians who are trained in science-based, integrative, holistic, or functional medicine. You know, if they've got a good science program in their studies, then they're doing it right. And I think it's always important that you maintain that balance of evolution of medicine with good, solid science.
And I think another reason it's great, well, number one, and everybody I know that does it, the majority of their peers are like, that's quackery. But then when you talk to the ones doing it, their patients are loving it. And I also think it also opens a door. I don't think patients feel safe going into a Western medicine doctor and saying, well, I don't believe this or I don't believe that. They just don't talk. They just leave and don't come back. They don't fill their prescription. And I think when you kind of put yourself out there that I'm alternative, I'm holistic, I'm whatever, it just opens the door to say, I want to hear what you believe. I mean, I know what my beliefs are. I went to 8 years of dental school, but what are your beliefs? And if they think, well, I think, you know, this or that or stress or whatever for their TMJ, their migraines or headaches, you know, all that stuff. I just think it opens the door to communication. And at the end of the day, you and I will both look silly 1,000 years from now. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think someone who is so biased against anything natural is already putting their foot in their mouth. I mean, it's common sense that you can support your patients by giving them some resources to improve their nutrition and their eating habits. And it's common sense that you can give patients resources that you can reduce their stress.
And
So,
I always tell my dentist friends, you know what my two favorite compliments that a patient gave me over the years regarding their TMJ and grinding their teeth and whatever. I feel like I was an alternative doctor and a holistic doctor because um, there's a man psychologist in the area that I think does really well with men, and there's a woman psychologist that does. I said, you know, are you kind of stressed out? And he was telling me, yeah, yeah. I said, go see this guy, and it was Dr. Hollabeek, and another one was another patient told me to. And over the years, they come back to me and they said, you know what? When I came in and I was grinding my teeth, I was, I was all stressed out. And you sent me to Dr. Hollabeek, and my God, that's the best thing that ever happened to me in the last, 20 years. And I thought to myself, yeah, and every dentist would have just adjusted your bite or given you a splint or they would have mechanically fixed your tooth. But I went out on a limb thinking maybe you're just stressed out of your mind and you should go talk to someone about some coping mechanisms to deal with your life.
my advice to these resistant practitioners is just go try it yourself. Go take a short meditation course. Doesn't have to be mine. Go on YouTube and look up diaphragmatic breathing and do it 5 minutes a day and see what kind of impact it has on you. And then when you experience a change, then you're going to be less resistant to changing your practice and maybe introducing a little stress reduction to your patients. It's to me, it's common sense, but we don't like change, and that's why a lot of people resist.
Well, Dr. Holden, thank you so much for spending an hour with me today. I hope everybody goes to www.dr-holden.com and takes his program for $40, or go to udemy.com, udemy.com. But thank you so much. I mean, my homies are stressed. They got a high suicide rate. 18% of them get through the day by drinking or taking
Yeah.
Vicodin, and everybody needs to, what'd you say, rest, relax, slow down, recuperate, regenerate, self-care.
Self-care.
Thank you so much for spending an hour with me today.
Absolutely, Howard. Appreciate you asking me to be on this.
All right, have a rocking hot day, Doc.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.